Right. So we are continuing. Thank you, everyone, for taking a seat on the round table, and welcome Franciska Lyom today for her contribution. Thank you so much for coming and being part of our symposium and weaving in our knowledge production, or trying to find new questions and some answers, and to learn more about your practice as well. To shortly introduce you, Franciska Lyom is an art historian, curator who has been director of the Galerie für Zeitgenössische Kunst Leipzig since 2012. In 2019, she curated the German pavilion at the 15th Venice Biennial, realizing the project with Natascha Süder-Hampelmann. She studied art history, Italian language and literature in Cologne and Paris. She worked as a curator at the Museum Ludwig, following a fellowship at the Hamburger Bahnhof Museum für Gegenwart in Berlin, and she headed to the Institute of Contemporary Art in Hungary. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation. As you all heard, I studied in Cologne, so when I, after 8 hours of train rides, saw the sign of Cologne, I felt very happy, and I was lucky enough to hear the presentation of Benjamin that resonates quite well with the work we do in Leipzig at the Galerie für Zeitgenössische Kunst. It is an institution that translates to English as Museum of Contemporary Art, and it is on purpose that these two names are not the proper translation of each other. So the intention is to show that the museum can be what we conceive of, or what we think it should be. So what I would like to tell you about is a museum that is a garden, that is a library, that is a cafe, that is exhibition spaces, that is a bakery and a hotel. So what we try in this place called GfZK is to create an open house, an open area where people can encounter each other, where people can encounter other species, but also where people can encounter artistic works and artistic ideas. So my idea was that we all try to imagine this place. I don't know if any one of you have ever been to GfZK. No, this is, you have been there, so you know it. So you will know if my description is not proper. So what I wanted to do is to invite you to imagine a square plot of land, like approximately 70 by 70 meters, an open garden, a plot of land that has no fences, that is accessible from all sides, and that is also accessible day and night. And within this area, which is the area of GfZK, there is two buildings, an old villa from the late 19th century that used to be the house of a family of Leipzig geologists. This house was refurbished in the 1990s as a museum of contemporary art. And then in 2004, a second building, more like not a postmodern, but a late modern pavilion, was conceived by my predecessor, Barbara Steiner, today the director of Bauhaus Dessau, and the architects as if from Vienna and Berlin. And these two buildings function as complements, let's say, because while the villa has circular gallery spaces in the first floor where you start a parcours and then walk through one space after the other in the new building, in the pavilion. You don't have right angles, you don't have a path to walk through the building, but you are invited to make choices, like decisions, which way you want to walk. And sometimes people feel like in a maze or a bit lost in that building, but what it sure does, as I said, as a complement to the other building, is makes you understand that spaces in which we usually encounter art are spaces made for this purpose, that these are spaces that are different from the urban space, from other publicly accessible spaces. So in the first place, this building wants to make you aware of what you're doing, that you're looking at art, or that you're engaging with artistic works in a specific space. Also, this building has a lot of glass facades, so you would see the traffic passing by, you would see what's happening outside, and you would realize that you yourself are kind of exposed because people from outside can see you moving through this building. So it's quite performative and also quite responsive in a way. And in these two buildings, we show exhibitions, we organize educational events. So just to give you an idea, art mediation or art education is like half of the work that we do. We work with different generations, with children from the age of 3 years and older, and with young adults, seniors. And the purpose is to understand what people are interested in, what people would like to find out. So to quote Luis Kamnitzer, an artist from Uruguay, now based in New York, or like since a long time based in New York, our purpose is not to give answers to questions that others pose, but to invite people to find their own questions, or to invite them to formulate their own interests in contemporary art, in what we do, in what they can do within GfZK. So this whole GfZK area is embedded in a very interesting and diverse context, urban context. We have like high-rises from the 1970s as neighbors. We do have the Art Academy, a Cultural Academy, the Library of the University as neighbors, and also the Musical Academy. So when you are in the garden of GfZK, you often hear the music that students of the Music Academy rehearse. Within the garden, we do have artworks that you can explore yourself. For example, we have a path built out of seashells from Friesland. So every once in a while, we would order like 500 kilograms of these shells, and then you step on it, you crack the shells, and you hear the sound. But without knowing or without necessarily learning what it is, you become one of the people who would experience it. We do not inhabit or use this area only ourselves. There is lots of animals, and on the occasion of one of the former exhibitions that we realized in 2023, the exhibition Things That Were Are Things Again. We invited an artist duo from Leipzig called Interspecies Society, and this duo creates like natural habitats, like they do gardening, and they plant plants. They create a selection of plants that would attract insects, specific insects, and also provide housing for small animals. And since this collaboration started in 2023, we also participate in a citizen science project that you can experience at UK iNaturalist. And if you go on the website, then you will see that in the last couple of years, there have been like almost 2,000 observations within the garden. And I think like almost or around 500 different species were observed and photographed. So last week we spent the night waiting for Nachtfalter, these insects that were attracted by a specific light. And for me it was very interesting to see who is on the premises when we are not there. Obviously in the morning there is bakers at the bakery, there is people who walk their dog. During daytime people play in the garden, children play in the garden, and in the evening there is like sports clubs all around the place. So this we knew, but I wasn't too aware of what is happening during the night, like who is walking through the garden, like the movement of bats and foxes and other animals were not known to me. So the idea is pretty much to invite people to inhabit this space, and if they wish, also to enter the museum. So when we report about what we do, like yearly 8 exhibitions and over like 300 educational programs, we also have to report the numbers. So what we do, we try to give all the numbers of all the people who use these different functional sites within GfZK. The purpose is to say that the museum is not solely a place where you go to see exhibitions, but it's more a space where you can do lots of different things. And as Benjamin explained, how they share or how they give the key to different communities, this is what we try to do on different levels. 2022, when Russia started its war against Ukraine, a lot of people came to Leipzig, a lot of refugees from Ukraine, mostly women with children. And as GfZK is in a central position within the city, it seemed a very good spot to meet for them. So they asked whether they could use one of the spaces to meet regularly. So we launched a project that went on for 2 years called A Space for You. And the idea was that people could gather there, exchange like practical information, do like drawing classes or yoga or whatever they wished. So our team was not part of these activities, but what was very interesting is that there was a growing community of Leipzig inhabitants, like people who lived there for a long time, and the newcomers to Leipzig who then also started their own activities, like independently from the institution. And when the war started in Ukraine, many institutions like started to create programs for the refugees, and we thought it would be so much more interesting to figure out what is needed, because and this is also very important for work. So we try not to imagine what people need or what people are interested in, but rather we try to listen and to figure out what interests there are and work from there. So the art mediation doesn't kind of look for the so-called target groups, but rather responds to individual interests and needs. So you surely know this slogan, everything about us, without us is against us. So we try to do everything in collaboration with others, like starting obviously with artists with whom we work, who can propose ideas that we might amplify as an institution, or that we might enhance in that we apply for funds for the projects, or that we initiate because of conversations and contacts that we had with artists. So what I brought here, and this is why I asked that we sit here, we created a brochure about GfZK to publicize GfZK for many different audiences, and also obviously also for groups of Kunstvereine or companies who wants to come there. And we try to explicate that there is many things going on. So there is exhibitions. I will pass these cards. We didn't create like a booklet, but rather this set of cards, because there is no hierarchy between what we do. So it's not that one part of our work is more important than the other. We do these art education programs that I introduced. We do have a library within the institution. And this is also very interesting because all the publicly accessible spaces are designed by artists. So the library, for example, was furbished by Till Exit, an artist from Chemnitz. Then I mentioned that we do have 2 hotel rooms. This is the Volksboutique by Christine Hill, an artist, US-American artist based in Berlin. So on the website, you can book a hotel room to stay there overnight. Either you go to the Volksboutique there that takes on the aesthetic of DIY, like as if you went to a Bauhaus or like another store, or you book a room called Paris Syndrome, made by Jun Yang, that refers to a shocking effect that a lot of Asian tourists have when they first travel to Paris, because they know the city from images, but then when confronted with the actual city, so it's an actual syndrome that is known.
2 rooms in the hotel.
Yes.
We are coming.
And I mean, these hotel rooms grew out of this question whether or not a museum can be also like an entrepreneur. I mean, in times of decreasing funding, like income that you generate becomes more and more important. And we are currently facing cards from the Free State of Saxony, that is one of the funders of GfZK. And in our team, we nevertheless discussed that we rather live with salaries that do not change, like do not augment, but we don't want to close down GfZK for like another day, let's say. So we are open from Tuesday until Sunday, and on Wednesdays it's free access. So we try to keep all those assets that we have and all those possibilities we create for visiting GfZK, rather than, you know, like closing one more day or taking away this free admission day. I mentioned the cafe, which is run by 3 entrepreneurs, but which is designed by Ruth Buchanan, an artist from New Zealand, who now runs the art space Aotearoa in the capital of New Zealand. And with the new design of the cafe that changes approximately every 6 years, we always also change the name of the cafe. So currently the cafe is called 292 Karangahape Road, which is the address of the art space in New Zealand. So the idea of Ruth Buchanan was to create like a filiale to this art space, considering GfZK as the periphery looking from New Zealand. There is permanent artworks that you can see when you visit our institution, like this mobile sculpture of Sarah C. that is in the entrance area, and there is also artworks outside. We do have a maze by Olaf Nicolai that is created out of plastic brooms of the city cleaning company of Paris. I don't know if you ever saw these green brooms. You saw that in Paris? Yeah. And the artist first built this labyrinth that is 10 by 10 meters in a suburb of Paris, where a lot of migrant families live. Families that often work for the municipality. And he thought, why not to use this broom that is a tool for the employees of the cleaning company to create a playground. So he turned the brooms upside down and kind of installed them in the shape of a maze. And this is actually a very popular artwork within the garden, where generations of people grow up. And within this project, Things That Were Are Things Again, which was an exhibition of our collection that we tried to implement as a climate-neutral exhibition, we got in contact with the factory that produces these brooms and managed to convince them to add like a UV protection so that the brooms do not suffer too much from the sun and the UV rays, and so that the plastic doesn't kind of pollute the soil. So the idea was here to not only to create a climate-neutral collection exhibition, but also to look how we can adapt our workings, how we can diminish pollution, how we can diminish waste. And what is interesting about the maze is that it was a phone call from one of our neighbors who said, like, GfZK is such a critical and reflexive institution, like, how come you produce this public waste in the garden? So what I was trying to explicate earlier, people feel very welcome to talk the institution and to address the institution, to change things or to question things. For this project, we did an e-publication, so I took some cards in case you want to look it up later. Interestingly, already the founding director of GfZK, Klaus Werner, who was a East German art historian, noted in 97 already that the success of this institution, of this new museum, would depend on the question whether or not it manages to be socially and ecologically sustainable institution. And his belief was that contemporary art and art mediation will help people to cope with the changes in society, in the field of work, structural changes such as the end of coal mining, such as the closing of the cotton factories and a lot of printing workshop, etc., etc. So he conceived this place as a very responsive space, a museum that is both interested in its environment, in the social ecosystem in which it operates, and also at the same time shapes this ecosystem. So now I mentioned some of the projects, and I will come maybe to an end with two more examples. 2017, we worked together for 2 years with the artist group My Villages, who in the garden house of GfZK established the International Village Shop. I I brought these publications for you, but I thought it would be very nice to look at them together. My Villages is an artist trio and is interested in the relationship between the urban and the rural, interested in the assumptions that we have about the urban and the rural. Like usually people conceive of cities as the progressive, culturally more developed environments, whereas the rural is associated with the more traditional, maybe also more conservative spaces. And therefore, the artists work around the globe in small villages and try to develop workshops, practical workshops, and also goods together with local communities in order to show that making things together creates new ties and creates also new relationships, new dependencies, as Benjamin said it before. And what they did in Leipzig is they invited in 8 chapters 2 villages each. We started with a village from Ghana and a village from South Germany. And so the goods that were created in these 2 villages were brought together. The people who live in these villages came together. And for example, we started out with a cooking session where the discussion was about very popular food in Ghana, the fufu, which are dumplings, compared with the Thüringer Klöße. And then the question was, like, my villages had proposed in Ghana, in Ekramfo, in the village they visited, to produce plates out of bamboo. But this was kind of denied by the inhabitants of the village, because they said they would never put like a white dumpling on a white plate. So food needs to be interesting and attractive visually.
Not the German way.
Not the German way. So through this dumpling experiments, we learned about aesthetics, we learned about questioning own habits, perhaps. And this went on for 8 chapters, and in this book you find some of the goods the artist produced and some of the presentations. As I said, art education is a very important part of our work, and in several different projects we looked into alternative educational models. And I don't know if you are familiar with these Freinet schools in France, where the schools would have like a printing press within the school building. And this is how the idea for children's newspaper started. It's a newspaper that is produced by children who are like 6 to 10 years. And what is special about this ongoing project is that both the content and the layout is created by the children editors. So these issues sometimes respond to exhibitions that are on display at GfZK. Sometimes they're independent, and they reflect on the present, on how we perceive our living environment, what conflicts and potentials there are in our daily lives. Last but not least, I brought here this flyer of our latest long-term project, Studio Inclusive, that we started couple of years ago when we did a project with artists, with crip artists and artists that do not consider themselves as part of the crip community, because we understood that a lot of resentment is based on the lack of knowledge about each other. So we work together with the class from the Art Academy, illustrator class, and the professors told us that students were a bit shy to work with disabled people, to do like mixed workshops. And when the professors asked them why, it turned out that nobody really has a contact with disabled people because we do not see them, because we don't share the same spaces, because it's extremely difficult to provide for mobility for those who need assistance to come to the museum. So a couple of years ago, we started together with grip activists from Leipzig to design this project that is like a weekly workshop where people, like abled and disabled people, work together with artists, with designers. So what I'm trying to say through these examples that I'm giving you is that most of the projects are realized in collaboration with others, are based on the expertise of those whom we work with. And in the best of all cases, these projects continue beyond funding deadlines, beyond our involvement. So there is plenty of projects that people who started them continue within private realms or independently from the institution, but within the premises of GfZK. Now, when I got this invitation to this gathering, I thought, the ideal institution is something that I think about quite often, because as you can imagine, there is a lot of premises, there is a lot of things to take care of, there's a lot of energy and finances that go towards these maintenance costs. And for me, the ideal institution would be smaller, more versatile, a space where you can do artistic events, but that you can use for completely different purposes. An institution that is able to decide whether or not it wants to present things or rather promote the production of perhaps site-specific works or works that evolve throughout time, whether or not it wants to invest energy and funds into open-ended processes that may fail or may end up somewhere else. And this is what I feel is less and less probable to happen within the funding structures. I mentioned that we face these severe cuts, and I feel that as many other institutions in the past years started to work towards more inclusion, less discrimination within museums or art spaces, while a lot of institutions started to look into their carbon footprint, looked into how they could transform their workings. And we pretty much succeeded to achieve a lot of milestones. This doesn't really count. So what we in the end have proved, I'm afraid, is that we go on working towards these ideal goals. Nevertheless, the funding decreases, the reporting increases. Nevertheless, the needs, like from schools, educational departments, or also refugee camps, increase, and towards art institutions. So it will be, in my conception of an ideal situation, so that the smallest, tiniest institutions get funding, and we maybe also put aside the huge stone buildings that consume a lot of energy and reproduce relations of the knowing museum and the learning public, and kind of change this relationship towards an exchange and a collaboration and an exploration in artistic terms on equal base. So thank you so much. I hope I didn't confuse you with all this printed matter, but I thought it would be nice to show you why we don't create like linear narrative, but rather a scattered structure for the presentation of the museum. Thank you.
Is someone having questions? It was so interesting. Wow.
We love the children's magazine.
Yeah.
We were very distracted by it all the time. You know? But how do you work with children? Because I can imagine that for each issue you had to there was quite a lot of work involved. So what was the procedure? We also have program for children at Temporary Gallery in the summer, but shorter program. But how do you do this?
So I mentioned that GfZK is located quite in a central place within Leipzig. And our idea was to, as in many projects, to bring together people, or in this case children, who otherwise would not meet because they are in different schools, or they attend different forms of schooling, or they live in different neighborhoods. So we asked those schools with whom we had a relationship. I mean, the art mediation department started in 2005, so the networks and the relationship grew all over this time. Whether they can bring the children to GfZK to work there on a regular basis. So what happens is that the editors of the magazine meet an artist and an art educator and start to talk about things that they're interested in, like being different from the others, or they worked in another issue about the city of Leipzig. And out of these conversations, narratives grow. So like some children are super in drawing things, whereas others are good storytellers. So what happens in this workshop is that children who experience themselves differently in school, because maybe there is the so-called low performers and the high performers, in this constellation everybody is able to do something. And this is, I think, the most interesting thing to figure out. So there is regular meetings, either in the schools or at GfZK. And then they would create like these props, or draw things, or draw like a cartoon, and develop it, and then discuss how the content should be layouted. We also organize press conferences where the editors, who are, as I said, like age of 6 or 10 years, like 6 to 10 years, meet with journalists and present the individual issues. And this is a program we started a couple of years ago, I think 2017 already. 2017. So I think this, of course, these long-term projects also create a certain understanding of what is needed. Like, is it more important to meet on site, or can a WhatsApp group function as an editorial meeting space? I mean, during Corona, we experienced that obviously there was a lack of real encounters, but that children at a very young age were capable to use these tools to work together. The same goes for a Studio Inclusiv. I was not aware, but it's quite obvious that for a lot of disabled people, like digital tools are the best tools to start or to create contacts, because they are not necessarily able to travel, or mobility is not granted. So actually, within this project, the biggest challenge for my colleagues is to make sure that these mobility services pick up the people and everyone is present when they want to be present. But I mean, I mentioned that within the working group that runs this program, there is CRIP activists who know that there is little visibility of CRIP artists, that there is a little like self-determination as to whether people can participate in these projects or not, because often the institutions where they live, where they have these assisted homes, decides who is allowed to participate in this workshop. So it takes a lot of time to get in contact, to find out who is interested in trying different artistic methods and forms of expression. And lately we organized the summer festival of GfZK, that is a yearly event, and it was organized by Studio Inclusiv. So what I'm also trying to say is, like, in an ideal case, the institution is, or our team doesn't need to propose things, but rather our role is to assist and to enable things, yeah. Which is, and I thought it was very interesting when Benjamin talked about his take on the art space. I would say that for me, curating in the case of GfZK is pretty much also curating these links, or like taking care of the different links that then kind of add up to groups of people who start projects, or artists who realize ideas, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, the longer I work in this field, the more I believe that that this is the most inspiring way to work. Because what I know or what I'm interested in, I'm completely aware of, but I'm amazed to learn what other people do or think. And I think this kind of interest or curiosity is there on many levels. Take that mic from me.
I have more questions, but maybe another person now.
Maybe if you talk about these links, you mean like the links to the collaboration partners, but also between the groups and projects itself, I guess? Like that the kids maybe do a project also or using the cafe for like a editorial session, or yeah, I was just wondering how these links are. Is it like the links to the outside, or also like between existing groups, I guess, but...
I mean, we do have a very, very small team, unfortunately, and when you go to the Museum of Fine Arts in Leipzig, or the theater, or the Doc Film Festival, or to other cultural institutions, you realize that there is former former collaborators of GfZK who work there. So there is, I would say, like a growing network of experts who then kind of sometimes also come back and propose collaborations. There is a project that is called Übungen and eines, which started in one of the districts of Leipzig that has very little cultural opportunities. It's a district that has a lot of high rises, these prefab high rises. There is basic infrastructure, but very little programs for young people or people interested in culture. So the collaboration started with the school, and the pupils kind of developed this brand, Übel and eines, which means like evil and nice at the same time to describe this part of Leipzig. And they developed commodities, the silk screen printed T-shirts or created small bags. So they funded, in the end of this workshop, a school enterprise, and they keep producing these goods, and sometimes they sell them at the flea market in the garden of GfZK. Sometimes they are assisted by my colleagues at the Christmas market somewhere else in the city. So I would say it's somehow if I want to look at it optimistically, it's as if the institution was an amplifier and a toolbox and a point of reference where you can kind of link in and ask for things you want to figure out or you want to do, etc. So it's very different. But there is people who met GfZK at the age of 3. And then visited the holiday workshops, then did a scholarship as pupils, and now study, and as a job do art mediation. So it's very difficult to tell because it sounds as if it was a family, but it's a public institution. So it's and people also team up among each other, develop artworks or fund artist collective and so on. So it's very diverse in its effects. Mm-hmm.
Could you maybe tell us a little bit more how you work within the institution, and when you started in 2012, was there already a bar, a library, a hotel, a bakery, a garden? How you worked throughout these years, also with your team? Yeah, it would be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very small team, as I mentioned. So we do have these weekly meetings, and for me personally, the art mediation has proved very inspirational. Because these methods of aesthetic research that a lot of artists deploy is so interesting to understand how there is societal structures, architectural structures, etc., that kind of impact and shape your everyday life, and how you can position yourself towards these structures or within these structures, how you can start to alter things that you think are not right. And as to the question if everything was in place, there was a library. Actually, the library existed before there was an exhibition space. So the collection of GfZK started with the collection of books. Between 1990 and 98, with the founding director, the institution worked within the city because we didn't have exhibition spaces yet. So he would organize exhibitions in empty warehouses or in empty apartments, a thing that wouldn't happen today, because there is like really a scarcity of apartments that one can rent. So the workings also grew with the institution. The music school came through my colleague whose child studied piano, and we had an apartment that was empty in this garden house where like in former times the housekeepers used to live. And when they moved out, then the music school moved in. Then we established the bakery in this very small room where the International Village Show took place. Part of the premises without heating, that was very difficult to kind of to deal with. Like we thought for years about could it be an artist studio, but without heating, it's very difficult in the winter. Then we thought about the flower shop, but there is already one. Then a bicycle shop, but there is already one. So it's by a trial and error, I would say. Some team members that are with you for a longer time? Yes, exactly. There is a couple of team members that have worked at GfZK for 20 years by now. So like one of the team members is there from the very beginning, like since the institution was founded. And actually, this is also very crucial. Also within the circle of friends of GfZK, there is people who are member of this circle from the very beginning. So it's also about remembering things. But I would say Klaus Werner, who was the founding director, was very progressive for his time. So when GfZK, the villa, the first exhibition space opened, he invited colleagues, experts, artists from all over the world. And it was unique in the 1990s to think of a space for contemporary art, because obviously there were so many existential changes and things to deal with, right? And I think today it wouldn't be easy to have this huge area, this with the huge museum garden. But back then, in the early 90s, it was completely unclear how the city would develop.
Do you own the house, or who is the ownership of the house? Do you rent the house?
So GfZK is a foundation, and it owns the exhibition spaces, the exhibition buildings, and it rents 2 parts of the garden area with a very special contract that you wouldn't be able to have these days. It's the Erbpachtvertrag, where you have, like, for a very small rent, like €1 per year, the right to use this area. And obviously there is an attempt to get back those parts of the garden in order to build, I don't know, lofts or whatever. But at the same time, Leipzig is trying to become a climate neutral city. So we see how important it is to have like a lot of trees. I looked up the English names of the trees in our garden, because it's really also a beautiful environment. And you can feel that it's cooler, that people come there to enjoy a bit of a cool also during summer. So, of course, one of the main aims is to keep this area that is super popular among students who are at the university nearby, and none of the academies has like a garden area, for example. 100 years. Like, I think it's still runs for 75 years. And yeah, and then we will see.
No, but I think it's interesting because like we always talk about like how to, once we have the space, how we invite people, but the big question is how to have a space. I think you're paying rent right here. So I was in an institution that was paying rent.
Mm-hmm.
It's massively difficult because you have these time restrictions. But the outpath is one of the few things that, specifically in Germany, that we could actually revive.
Mm-hmm.
Because actually, my observation is that also production places for studios
Mm-hmm.
are actually surviving once they have an outpath. And once they have to rent something, it's very difficult. Like the spec we both work at, they have an outpath, and they
Mm-hmm.
survived. And I think it's because of that.
But it's only 10, 12 years?
30 years.
30 years.
30 years. That's why they survived. I think because of that, they wouldn't have managed. I think, but it's a very important thing. And it's so old-fashioned that it actually disappeared out of Germany. Like,
Yeah, I mean, in Berlin there is Ex-Rota.
question. I'm sorry. But
No. It's
so existential.
no, it's not boring at all. In Berlin, the Ex-Rota print is like a former printing like premise, and on the initiative of artists, it was possible to purchase the premises. And there is even a foundation in Switzerland that invests money so that like pieces of land cannot be sold. So that this foundation supports initiatives for the commons to keep premises. And I think it's really crucial because the pressure on the public administration is growing. So those things and those assets that they haven't sold yet will be sold like very quickly and will be gone very quickly. So it's super important. And maybe one last remark, because I started without the fact that there is no fences around this garden. What I find is super remarkable is that there is very little vandalism. Like the only vandalism is graffiti, if you want to call it vandalism. And my impression is that people know that it's a precious thing to have, like a space where you can hang out without any pressure on you whether or not to spend money, or you can book the hotel room, you can go to the cafe, you can enroll the music school, you can go to the museum and buy a ticket, but you don't need to. And I think this is such a precious thing about it. Yeah.
Maybe one more question, or no. I don't know if you'd like to share it, but you studied here, but you came from Hungary. You worked also there, and then you came to Germany. And does this fact of coming from another country informs your curatorial practice? Do you, after all these years, see that it kind of influenced your curatorial approach? Something we also reflect within our groups, because we realize that most of us have some kind of migrant roots, our families, and it's an interesting maybe reflection that is possible to make. But yeah, I wonder how do you think about it?
I mean, when I was appointed director of GfZK, I felt that people were quite relieved in Leipzig, because I was coming from East Europe. Because after 1990, a lot of West German professionals moved to the eastern part of Germany and took on like leading positions, like professorships at the academies, at the university. There is the administrational court in Leipzig, so a lot of lawyers and judges moved to East Germany. So I thought it was once in a lifetime, it can be a privilege to be East European. Whereas very often it's rather as if it was a stain, you know. So I feel I often feel it is also a lack of knowledge. Obviously, people, or not everybody, travels or knows countries in eastern parts of Europe, but so I think I'm very masterful in managing low budgets or creating things out of low budget, which is very tiresome because the finances are very scarce at GfZK. We don't have any funds for the programs, so we fundraise everything for the programs. And this is why I said, for me, the ideal institution would need but the program funds and would not spend lots of money on heating and whatever, alarm systems and so on. But what I thought was super important, or for me personally was super important, we collaborated with Offener Prozess, this research group consisting of Ayşe Gülec and Fritz Laszlo Weber, who did the research into the NSU murders and created this nomadic exhibition. And around the same time, a Leipzig initiative of people whose parents or grandparents migrated to the eastern part of Germany did research into the migrantic history of Leipzig. And in our conversations or attending their programs, which I didn't host, but the institution hosted or they hosted within the institutions, I learned so much about everyday racism. Also, even though one wouldn't know whether I was German or not, but I kind of recognized a lot of things that were discussed within these workshops. And it's only a recent development in the east of Germany that second or third generation people of so-called contract workers start to look into their histories and tell these histories. So there is this book, Erinnern störend, Migrant and Jewish Life After 1990, which is a very important book because maybe it's not common knowledge that for migrant communities and also Jewish people living in Germany, this reunification was a shock and a threat that exposed them to more precarity or kind of recreated trauma. So I think that's a very important work that is going on, and I'm very glad that we can host parts of it or publicize parts of it by hosting it.